Howdy folks, hope you're all having a good one and welcome back to World of Warships with Rear Admiral Jingles, where today we are featuring, I'm not ashamed to admit that I did struggle with this guy's name at first. I toyed with the idea of just calling him Dave. I thought, is this Dakin in da? And it took me at least a minute to figure out that it's actually the King in the North. So, I mean, it's so obvious. But I'm crap. So anyway, the King in the North here in a Tier 8 ranked battle. A 3 capture point domination match on the Islands of Ice map. Now since it's ranked, and this is the North American server by the way, but since it's ranked there are only 6 players per team, and since the replays are still bugged we can't see what's on the enemy team. But King in the North is having a look around his team and it seems pretty good. I mean, they've got 2 Massachusetts and a Bismarck. So that's some serious doses of very, very strong main gun battery firepower, but also probably the best secondaries you can have at Tier 8. You wouldn't want to be either of the 2 destroyers on the enemy team getting anywhere near any of these 3 battleships. They are backed up by a radar cruiser. Just the 1 cruiser per team, but the Cleveland is a radar cruiser, and he is heading for the middle of the map for maximum radar coverage. This is a very good sign, as well as 2 destroyers, a Benson and a Z-23, and both of the destroyers are heading for the nearest cap circles. This is looking pretty good. I mean, it remains to be seen what the actual players on the team are going to be like, but based on the way they're splitting up and deploying at the beginning of the battle, it seems fairly encouraging. But the actual ships that they're all sailing, this is a really good composition for a Tier 8 ranked battle team. Okay, so the enemy have 1 Massachusetts of their own. It's to be expected. It's a popular pick at Tier 8 for very good reasons. Its secondaries are absolutely hilarious. Now, he's the only one spotted, but there's obviously somebody up there in Bravo. Somebody's flipping it. The friendly Z-23 is flipping Charlie, and I'm not quite sure, or at least I wasn't at first, what exactly the Benson up here was playing about. He seems awfully bashful about sneaking into that cap circle, but what he's doing is actually fairly smart. There's a little island in there in the cap circle, and he's making sure he keeps that between himself and the Massachusetts, since he's already in the Massachusetts secondary gun battery range. So that's a big brain move from the Benson. Oh, and there's 1 of the enemy destroyers. That explains who just spotted the King in the North here. And it's an Asashio. So that's... well, it's actually good news for the Benson, because the Asashio has deep water torpedoes that can only hit battleships. Well, it can hit battleships and carriers, but there are no carriers in this. It's ranked. So that's really good news for the Benson. It cannot be torpedoed by the Asashio. The Asashio, not wanting to get into a gunfight with the Benson while getting bluted by a Massachusetts secondaries, has popped smoke and ducked behind an island, which means that the Benson is able to flip Alpha uncontested. The Z-23 has managed to flip Charlie. This is a fantastic... ooh, there goes the deep water torpedo. That was uncomfortably close. But this is a great start. The Massachusetts over there is starting to take a pounding. Still no sight of any other enemy ships. Looks like the Benson's taking a peek. Oh, there's the Asashio. Now, the Asashio is going to lose a gunfight with the Benson. But the guns, while they do not hit often, they do hit pretty hard. But a sustained gunfight, the Asashio is always going to win. So it looks like he peeked out. Got 1 salvo off. Actually, didn't even do that. He's ducked back into cover behind the island again. The Benson hasn't taken any damage. Meanwhile, the secondaries continue to do their thing. And we now have a better idea of what else is on the enemy team. So, as well as that Asashio in the Massachusetts, the Asashio really keeps testing his luck here. But spotted up at Cap Circle Bravo, the enemy team also have a Tirpitz and a Key. So as well as that Massachusetts, they also have 3 ships with very strong secondaries, or potentially very strong secondaries. And the only thing that we didn't know was what cruiser is on the enemy team. And there it is, it's an Attica. So the enemy team have no radar. Unfortunately, neither does the King in the North's team, because they lost the Cleveland about a minute ago. I mean, if you look at the map, you can see just north of where the other friendly Massachusetts is there now, that's where the Cleveland was, and it looked like a really unfortunate death, because he was tucked in behind the island and angled towards the Key, and the Key looks like he bitch slapped him through the bows and settled him from the front anyway. Honestly, it didn't really look like the Cleveland was doing anything wrong, but, well, he died anyway. That Asashio's up again. He keeps trying to pick solo gunfights against this Benson, doesn't it? Well, they're not even solo, because King in the North can shoot at him, so... well, there goes the Asashio.
Nice work.
Now, the Benson has taken some damage. I think it was mostly from 8-inch high explosive shells fired by that Attigo. Oh, that Massachusetts has taken a bit of damage as well. I think he was suffering from a crossfire from the Tirpitz and the Key over there as he came over here to assist in Alpha. But with the kill on the Asashio and the early cap advantage that they had, even though Alpha is now contested by the Massachusetts of all things, the King of the North's team are ahead on points. It's around about here where I think it's safe to say he makes a bit of an error. That Massachusetts is now at the extreme limit of his secondary gun battery range. And while the enemy Massachusetts probably has the same secondary build as the King of the North, it can't shoot back at him because it's tucked in too close to the island. Its guns don't have the clearance. But in what I can only assume was an effort to try to cover both sides at the same time, the King of the North is now too far away to use his secondaries on the enemy Massachusetts and be of any further support to the Benson in the cap circle as he comes over here to try to get the main battery guns on these guys while keeping the secondaries focused on the cap circle at Alpha. And he has a bit of a indecisive moment here when he's got a whole bunch of targets to shoot at and then can't make his mind up which one he is actually going to shoot at. He kind of blew the opportunity to get some good broadside shots at the Key there, but he was able to do some damage at least on the Benson and come to the assistance of the Z-23 there, who is getting focused down heavily. I mean, the secondaries are now in range of something at last. The Z-23 is wisely holding his fire and just getting out of there and going undetected. And the friendly Bismarck has received a bit of a beating too. What's going on back here? I'm taking charge of the camera here for the moment. Oh, the Benson's in trouble. The Benson's in a lot of trouble. The Benson's dead. What we have here, I think it's safe to say, is the King of the North trying to do too many different things at the same time and just ending up not really doing a very good job of any of them. It's likely that he thought that the other friendly Massachusetts and the Benson could handle the enemy Massachusetts and the Attigo with some support from his secondaries, but he sailed too far away for his secondaries to be of any further assistance to the team. He sailed over here, oh, watch out, there's Z-23, in order to try to help out the Bismarck and the Z-23. Unfortunately, he's now in a position where he doesn't actually have line of fire on anything, and it looks like the Massachusetts is going for a ram. I mean, that seems a little premature, but it's not an absolutely terrible idea, because both ships are going to die. It's a points neutral exchange, and it's a quick and easy way to farm a sneaky 50,000 damage from the enemy Massachusetts, and the enemy team are still 1 kill ahead. Even worse than that, tactically you could argue that that was actually a very big brain move from the enemy Massachusetts, because Alpha is now completely uncontested and they still have an Attigo up there. So the enemy team have 2 of the 3 cap circles and they're about to flip the 3rd, and they're already 100 points ahead. And it's here where the King in the North makes his second and biggest error, because, yeah, that was a Benson. And Bensons have torpedoes. They're really slow torpedoes, but at this kind of range, it's difficult for even Benson torpedoes to miss. So he just took the paddling of a lifetime there that he really should have been able to anticipate coming and avoided, and he's stuck in secondary range of 2 very, very strong secondary battery battleships. What do you mean, Jingles? One of them's Japanese. Yes, but the Key, if you set it up appropriately, is actually a very strong secondary battery battleship. And yep, the Attigo is flipping Alpha, because of course he is. The Bismarck's gone down, there's now only 2 of them left, and now the recriminations start in chat. With the other friendly Massachusetts demanding to know why the King in the North abandoned the cap circle at Alpha. Well, he didn't mean to abandon the cap circle at Alpha, he thought he could cover both flanks at the same time. He was just wrong. He never claimed to be the greatest player in the world, he's an average Joe just like the rest of us. He tried to do the right thing, he just fucked it up. And, oh, there's the Attigo. The enemy team are 300 points ahead with all 3 of the cap circles. There's just him and the Z-23 left. The Attigo, seeing a Massachusetts in the open on very low health like this, very wisely switches to the 8-inch high explosive shells, a couple of good fires. With his damage control on cooldown, I mean, aside from the large amounts of damage that 8-inch high explosive can do to a battleship that's armoured mostly with 32mm plating, fires would be a really, really unwelcome addition. Shots out, quick look behind him. Oh, that's looking pretty... Oh, those weren't the citadels we deserved, but they are the citadels we needed. Right, well, doesn't have to worry about being caught in a crossfire anymore. Focuses the secondaries on the Benson. Unfortunately, there's about to be some more bad news as the friendly Z-23 was lurking around the side of an island, almost certainly hoping to ambush and sink the Key, but then, of course, the Benson appeared, spotted him. The Key thought, I'm not falling for that old gag. I know an ambush when I see one. I've seen a couple of John Wayne movies in my time. Bitch slapped the Key into oblivion. The King of the North follows up by finishing off the Benson, which is, of course, good news. But he's 300 points behind and he's now alone against 2 other Tier 8 battleships, both of which have the potential to have extremely strong secondary gun batteries. The Tirpitz, of course, is a secondary monster, but the Key can be too. Although if you come around the corner of an island, giving broadside like that to a battleship armed with 16-inch guns... Okay, the Key is no longer a threat, but the Tirpitz very definitely is. And it's got 30,000 more health than the King in the North does. And if you have a look at the paper doll above the compass down there in the bottom left corner of the screen, even though the King in the North has 1 heal remaining, it's not going to do anything because there isn't really any healable damage left. Mind you, if the Tirpitz is going to continue to gift him shots like that, I mean, you're never going to citadel a Tirpitz at this kind of range. German battleship turtleback armour protection scheme. But that doesn't mean it isn't going to eat large chunks of armour-piercing damage if you give as much of the ship to shoot at as that Tirpitz is. The question, of course, is which way did the Tirpitz go? Because if it's coming around that side of the island, remember the Tirpitz has torpedoes. So we're not falling for that old gag. Haha, psych out! Oh shit, this could be really, really bad. Caught broadside on with only 13,000 health left. Fortunately for the King in the North, the Tirpitz appears to have been as surprised by this development as he was, because those are not the Tirpitz's main gun batteries, those are the Tirpitz's secondaries, and he is able to swing the ship around and get some armour angling going on. The Tirpitz, meanwhile, you get a broadside again just to get that rear gun turret firing. I do believe you are. We'll take it. Yeah, where's your 30,000 hit point health advantage now, sunshine? Still, I mean, the Tirpitz only has to get lucky once. The King of the North is down to 4,000 health, and he has to keep getting lucky every time. He's got the island between him and the Tirpitz. Let's put the aircraft up, see if we can spot him, and at least get some idea of which way he's going and which way his guns are likely to be pointing. As we swing the nose of the ship around to get some armour angling going on, there he is, he's coming right at us. Broadside on again. Shots out. And we pause. Have a look at the top of the screen, because in all the excitement you might not be keeping track of the scores. The Tirpitz is more than 500 points ahead. More importantly, he's only 10 points away from winning. And with all 3 of the cap circles under his control, I'm not sure of the exact timings, but it probably means that all he had to do was survive another 6 seconds and he would have reached 1,000 points and won. But how's he going to survive another 6 seconds locked in a close-range duel against a Massachusetts? Yeah, fair one, that's a good point. I mean, I'm not seeing an awful lot of options here for the Tirpitz. Well, okay, maybe one. Could have, should have, would have. Didn't. Hooray! It's a win for the King in the North. Or is it? Oops. So was it a win for the King in the North? Because technically the Tirpitz did die first by like a fraction of a second. But the Tirpitz was 500 points ahead, so if the game counts that as both ships dying at the honestly, I don't know. The King in the North told me a lot of things about this battle, but he never told me who actually won. So I guess on that cliffhanger, your guess is as good as mine. That's it for this episode of A Game of Throws in World of Warships. Which team actually ended up throwing? I honestly have no idea. You be the judge. Take care, and I'll catch you next time.